Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Joining us right now on the phone is Congressman Joe Barton, representing the 6th District of Texas. He is also the Chairman Emeritus of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. It's great to talk to you today, sir.
It's my pleasure.
All right, I wanted to discuss the new EPA regulations that are likely going to increase the cost of gasoline for American families and businesses, and also a new law concerning genetically modified foods. Let's first talk about these new Tier 3 EPA regs for gasoline. The goal here, I guess, is to at least according to the EPA, is to reduce the amount of sulfur in gas emissions. These new restrictions will require U.S. refineries to get their products in line with gas sold in places like Japan, South Korea, and California. Democrats say, some people, and even some people in the auto industry say this is a good thing. Why are these people wrong?
Well, when you talk about health standards or environmental standards, it's difficult to say that somebody is just flat wrong because everybody has good intentions, But having said that, under the Clinton administration and then implemented by the Bush administration, we reduced the sulfur content in gasoline by 90%. The standard now is 30 parts per million, that's per million. And these new standards that the EPA put out on Good Friday, when everybody was, at least everyone who's a Christian, like myself, we're thinking about the coming Easter Sunday, not exactly focused on environmental regulations. They would reduce that further from 30 to 10, so a reduction, depending on how you want to look at it, 200% or 67%. There is a point beyond which it is really a real question as to whether there is any health impact in a positive way, and I think this particular regulation would have a very difficult time answering that question in a positive way with neutral observation.
So we're at the point of diminishing returns on these restrictions.
Yeah,
you say.
I think that's probably a much more concise way to say what I just said. I'm not aware of any valid evidence that says going from 30 parts per million of sulfur content to 10 parts per million is going to have a positive health impact. Again, we just got through implementing standards that reduce the amount of sulfur in gasoline by 90%. And so this takes it down to almost a de minimis level, almost impossible to even detect.
Another argument we hear coming from proponents of these emission standards is some sectors of the auto industry. They say this will standardize some of these emissions regulations on a global scale. That will give the automakers some certainty on which direction they need to move forward when they're planning for the future. We talked about good intentions on the onset. Is this also a case of good intentions that might do more harm than good?
Well, I think that's an almost irrelevant observation. I'm not real impacted by what the sulfur content of gasoline sold in Japan is, or South Korea, or even Europe for that matter. Most European cars run on diesel anyway. They don't run on gasoline. We're the largest consumer of gasoline in the world. The European Union is the largest consumer of diesel fuel for their transportation fleet. So does it make it a little bit easier perhaps for Detroit to design engines? I guess possibly. But these standards are supposed to protect public health, and I think the current standard does that. I really don't believe that you can prove that lowering this standard has a positive impact on health. The EPA has trotted out the same old tired set of statistics that somehow this is going to reduce the so-called premature deaths, so many thousands a year and things like this. They've never been able to prove that. They won't really share their data. There is some evidence that some of these studies they have cooked the books. So again, I am not against strong environmental regulations, but I am against if tight's good, tighter is better, and that appears to be what this is.
And so you're saying the EPA has not been upfront enough with their findings on this issue?
Well, we had some. We didn't do a full-blown investigation last year in the Energy and Commerce Committee and the Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee, but we did try to get the EPA to provide us with some data about some tests on humans and to try to prove some of these, verify some of these models and some of these formulas that EPA was using. And to the extent we were able to get information from the EPA, it did not prove their case. So, again, everybody in the Congress on both sides of the aisle wants strong environmental regulation to protect the public health and safety. But just because a current standard can be technically tightened does not mean that it's necessary or that it will result in any real public health improvement.
And you would certainly hope a government agency like the EPA would make any findings it has from these studies public. The American people do have the right to know. Another issue we have to consider here, of course, is the effect that this might have on an important industry in your state of Texas, and that's the oil refining industry. A recent report by the Heritage Foundation said that these new Tier 3 standards could force some of these refineries to close and shut down. Do you think that these new Tier 3 regulations might force some refineries to close?
Well, you know, we have less refineries in terms of absolute number of refineries today than we had, 20 or 30 years ago. Now, our capacity has not decreased as much because the refineries that we still have tend to be larger and they tend to be more efficient. But having said that, as you tighten this standard once again, our older, smaller refineries, it's going to be very difficult for them to justify the cost in terms of throughput and ability to recover the cost in terms of the gasoline products that they sell. So my guess would be that if this standard goes through, you will in fact have some refineries that are currently in operation be shut down, and you'll have, I don't know how many jobs will be lost, but there will be jobs lost. There are refineries out in the Caribbean, they're not in the United States, that they're being shut down or have been shut down just in the last 2 to 3 years because of some of the increase in standards.
Certainly something to keep our eyes on. I know a lot of Americans, of course, concerned about the price of gas. Also, real quickly, I want to shift to this issue of genetically modified foods. There was a rider attached to the new spending bill that would give the production and sale of genetically modified foods and genetically engineered crops and the companies that produce these products immunity from court intervention, even if there are some health risks that do emerge. Some food safety experts have referred to this as the quote-unquote Monsanto protection bill, the large agribusiness corporation. Some people also accused lawmakers of slipping this rider onto the bill at the last minute. Senator Roy Blunt, who proposed the bill, defended it, saying that it basically just says if you plant a crop that is legal to plant when you plant it, you get to harvest it. That was a quote that Senator Blunt gave to the Hill newspaper. And also this restriction is limited to 1 year. But I also want to talk about your concerns about genetically modified crops or food. Do you have any, or these reports that we hear about, are they overhyped?
Excuse me. My father was a plant geneticist in the cotton industry. He developed several varieties of cottonseed that could be used for a food source. Those varieties haven't really caught on in the marketplace. But he proved that you could get as much food out of cottonseed as you do out of peanuts if you use the type of cottonseed that doesn't have a poison called gospel in it. So I'm a proponent of genetically modified foods. You get bigger crop yields. You get better crops, and I am convinced that there are no health hazards to them. So, as we have a population that's growing around the world, God bless the plant geneticists who are developing various varieties of foods and crops and fibers that we get better production and more resistant to disease and drought and things like that. So I'm very confident that Senator Blunt of Missouri has thought this through and convinced his colleagues in the Senate that this is something that's a good thing to do, and I'm very pleased that he did it.
And so subsequently, you also believe that this rider had the proper review from Congress and that the concerns that it was slipped into the last minute are unfounded.
Well, I'm not. I wasn't a part of the group of congressmen, House members, and senators that worked on that particular bill, so I can't state personally. But I know Roy Blunt. I served in the House with him for a number of years before he went to the United States Senate, and he's a very good man, and I absolutely have confidence that he completely vetted this and that it's very sound from a health standpoint.
All right, fantastic. Congressman Joe Barton, thanks so much for your time, sir. I do appreciate your insight on both these issues. It was a pleasure talking with you.
It's always good to talk to you.